This is Alec Blenis, one of the best hybrid athletes in the world, and today he's going to show me the exact exercises he uses to build his crazy six-pack and strengthen his core. These are pretty advanced exercises, so Alec is going to give you his best technique tips on each one.
First exercise is going to be the classic GHD sit-up. And maybe scoot up so like maybe your butt's like there. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, something like that. By getting the lumbar support or getting this pad actually underneath his back, he's able to push into the pad with his back. So wherever that fulcrum is, if we think the muscle is opposite that fulcrum, that's where we're gonna be able to really contract the hardest. So we've got this nice support under here. Now I want Eugene to think about not necessarily coming up with the head or the chest, but I want him to take his ribs here and try to bring his ribs into his pelvis here. So try to crunch this space as close together as you can, and that's it. That's the top. What a lot of people wanna do is drop the hips down, and now that's super easy.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're staying back and we're just trying to bring that space together as much as we can. Now, this looks too easy for Eugene. So we're gonna give him a little weight, and I just want you to hold this at your collarbone or right underneath your chin. And then same thing, don't throw the weight up, just crunch, 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 crunch. And then slowly go back down. Big stretch, big inhale. Expand that rib cage as much as you can. And then crunch, 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 crunch. You can even think about posteriorly tucking the pelvis, squeeze your glutes a little bit.
That's hard. Oh, shit.
There we go. You can think about moving the upper body and the lower body. So if you crunch from both sides, so curl those hips up, crunch that rib cage into them, the contraction is insane.
Fuck.
It's hard, right?
Yeah.
This exercise just is kind of a function of some of your respiratory muscles engaging. Even if it's somewhat sub-maximal in terms of like the load that you're lifting, you're gonna get a little out of breath. It might kind of feel hard regardless of the load. So what I would say is, if in doubt, try adding a little bit of load to it and see how it goes. If it's too heavy, it's too heavy, you come back down. But sometimes this just kind of feels challenging no matter what, just because of what your breath is doing. And that can also make higher rep sets really tough. So when you're doing this really well, like we're showing here, if you try to do 20, you might just run out of gas. So I do like actually loading this one up quite a bit and seeing how heavy you can go. A fun variation that you can do on this is to make the eccentric or the lowering portion a little bit tougher and lengthen that lever to get more weight on this side of the fulcrum. So Eugene, as you go down, reach this dumbbell up towards your forehead. Go down as far as you can. And then when you come up, you can pull it back down towards your chest a little bit. There you go. As you go down, closer to the forehead. So now it's a little bit tougher on the way down, big stretch, but I'm gonna make it a little easier on him so he can come up.
Oh yeah, I tried coming up with it at my forehead and it just wouldn't.
There you go.
Oh shit.
If you're new to core training, it doesn't take a lot of sets. If you load it heavy, get a really good exercise that gives you a good stretch, you might get really sore from just 2 or 3 sets. If you're a more advanced athlete, if you've been training core for a while, you might need to do 8, 10, 12 total working sets of core in a session to really get a good result. So it really just depends on where you're at, but I always encourage people to focus on quality over quantity. I'd rather you ask yourself, how much benefit can I get from 2 or 3 really good sets versus just accumulating a ton of trash volume.
I've already got like the thickest ab pump. I'm a little bit worried about what's to come next.
Most people, when they think of ab training, they think of a lot of head first movements, I say. So your lower body is stabilized, fixed on a machine, and then you're crunching your upper body towards your lower body. But it's also worth exploring the opposite. So we're gonna do that, but we're gonna get the upper body on this half of the machine, and we're gonna do the reverse GHD sit-up. But this is gonna absolutely wreck Eugene's kind of upper abs, intercostals, even get into his lats a little bit. Should be a lot of fun. For this exercise here, I'm gonna lay back and I'm getting my upper back on the support, and that's kind of these abs, muscles around my rib cage, upper abs. These are gonna get absolutely lit up from this exercise. And from this position, in the big stretch, and I'm crunching knees to elbows, slow and controlled. Really control and milk that eccentric. Big stretch at the bottom, and then crunch. The lower abs may initiate the movement in terms of that initial leg lift, but I have the worst, most unfavorable leverage for the upper abs, and that's making them work extra hard. If you need a little bit of momentum or leg swing, you can. Come on, crunch, 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 crunch. Slowly lower, control that eccentric. There you go. Now that's enough there. We're gonna make it a little bit easier. Now, the reverse GHD sit-up is definitely an advanced movement. Most people, you tell them to do that, their spine just snaps in half. Eugene is super strong, so he was able to get through a couple of those, but there's a number of ways that we can modify this. One, getting that support a little bit further out. So if I adjust the machine here, it might be a little bit tougher to get all the way back and find those handles, but now he's got a lot more support.
Yeah.
There's a lot less body mass over here. This is gonna be much, much easier.
Yeah.
It was a lot more fun for me to watch him struggle on the toughest variation first, but now you can see he's able to get quite a few more reps there. Now, if you wanna make this exercise extra hard, you're gonna extend the legs. Now try to go down with straight legs now. And now, now he's really feeling it. There we go. You can tuck on the way up and then try to extend those legs, making that eccentric even tougher with a longer lever. That was awesome. The final progression or final boss of this exercise is to essentially make it a GHD dragon flag. And I'm gonna keep my hips and legs extended the entire time.
It really is insane. Like, we're doing sets of like 3 to 8 reps at most, and it's such a different feeling in the abs compared to your typical like 50 rep sets or whatever, those burnouts. I literally feel like I've just done like, I'm doing hack squats or like bicep curl really heavy and really hard, but for my abs, which is probably gonna turn them into this. Fuck. All right, moving on.
All right, so we just finished doing some GHD work, really worked on our six-pack, our rectus abdominis. We're gonna get into the obliques a little bit, all the muscle on the side of your core, get some of those striations going, and we're gonna work on a cable twist. So we're gonna talk about how to set this up to be able to make it a really good hypertrophy stimulus, make it really stable, make it really heavy, and really get into those obliques as much as possible. When most people set up to do a cable twist exercise, they usually will set up at a nice right angle to the machine, which is totally fine. It's an acceptable way to perform the exercise as I am here. As I go through the twist, notice it's really easy here. I can hang out here all day long. So this setup, how most people do it, is toughest kind of in that neutral position, but we're not really loading that stretch very much. So what I like to do is actually turn out about 45 degrees or 135 degrees, depending on how you think about it. Now what that's gonna do is it's gonna make this stretch position at the end still really tough. I can no longer hang out here all day. This is hard. Feels like a nice even challenge through the entire rep. Big stretch, tough to control at the back. And twist across. Nice big stretch there. If you can, Eugene, pause at the back of this rep. I want to draw attention to the fact that at the back of the rep, we've got roughly a 90-degree angle between his arms and the cable here, so that's where the tension is greatest in this stretch position. Now bring it out. Usually in the gym, people will train movements in both a heavy and slow fashion, like a heavy barbell squat, but they'll also do faster, more explosive work, like a jump squat or broad jump and that sort of thing. But when it comes to core work, people have this fear of moving quickly. Core training doesn't just have to be slow and controlled. It can be kind of violent as well. So we're gonna work on an exercise that is a little bit more explosive, a little bit more funky looking, but it's a lot of fun and a great way to prepare your core and your spine for the forces that you're gonna encounter in real life. Most of the core exercises that we do to build strength and hypertrophy is all about using the lightest possible load for the greatest possible stimulus, making movements as hard as possible, as big of a stretch as possible, and so on. This exercise is all about using the most weight, being as powerful, as efficient, and creating the most force you possibly can. I would encourage you to try this heavy, as it's going to force you to use your most efficient and most powerful technique. You wanna go heavy for the full slap?
Not yet. I'm not prepared for the full power stuff.
All right.
I don't know my own power.
Find kind of a neutral position first. Nice even stance, hands out in front of your chest. There we go. Now hold like a pull-off press, essentially.
Yeah.
And we're just gonna work on the footwork. Rotate or pivot everything towards me.
Yep.
And then other way. Only move one foot at a time.
Yeah. Right foot plant, this one pivots.
Exactly.
Left foot, right foot.
There we go.
Cool. All right, let's get some load on this.
Now this is all about creating that stretch reflex or stretch shortening cycle, but in the core. So whenever you go to jump high, for example, you're gonna drop down and then jump. You're creating that stretch shortening cycle. Same thing we're doing here. Those hips lead, and by getting the hips to go in front of the rib cage, we're stretching those obliques, creating that reflex for them to explode across very quickly and explosively.
Would you normally go higher reps on this as well?
Anything can work. I do find if you try to go too heavy, it might just pull you over, and it gets tough to just stay upright, you know, and not get pulled towards the machine. So sometimes you have to go a little bit lighter, a little bit higher rep just from a stability perspective. But as long as you're not using so much load that the cable's literally pulling you over, you should be fine. Most people can go up to about half their body weight before they feel like they're getting really dragged over by the cable.
Fuck yeah, on the road to being more Alecified.
That's great.
Yeah.
Our final exercise for the day is the 45-degree side bend exercise. I'm a big fan of training lateral flexion, both for the obliques and for the QL of the lower back. And we'll soon find out and see how Eugene feels, but most people will feel a lot in the side of their hips on this exercise as well, which I think is an underrated benefit of this particular movement. This exercise in particular is really great at facilitating a huge stretch, getting a really good range of motion. So I really like this one quite a bit. It is an advanced exercise, but we'll talk about some options to make it a little more scalable and accessible as well. All right, we're creating as much space here as we can, expanding the rib cage, big breath in. Oh, exhale, come up.
All right, not too bad.
There we go.
Not too bad. It's no GHD sit-up yet, but this is definitely uncomfortable, and I've definitely been shortchanging myself when I've been doing this on my own.
Now, just with your own body weight, you can change the difficulty of this exercise quite a bit. So when you hold your arms down here a little bit lower, as Eugene's doing, it's a little bit easier. I'm gonna challenge him to put his hands behind his head. There we go. It's gonna help facilitate some more expansion of that rib cage too.
Yeah. Try that again.
There we go. Nice big stretch, creating all that space. Look at how much space there is between his armpit and his hip. Close that space, man. There we go. Tough exercise.
We're just doing lowering only reps now. we've already reached.
We're on to the eccentrics.
We've reached a 3-rep max.
There we go. Give you a little help on the way up. There we go. Nice crunch.
It is unbelievable how weak I am there.
It's a tough one. I mean, most people, again, they'll just go down a little bit, or you see, for some reason, 45 pounds is the standard for everyone to do with side bends. It doesn't matter how weak or strong you are. Everyone just grabs a 45 and they do their thing, sometimes with one in each hand, rocking back and forth.
Yeah, you see so many people in the gym just doing the standing side bend.
I like the standing side bend, don't get me wrong, but when you think about holding that weight so close to your side, the lever is just not very long. So to really challenge yourself, it actually takes quite a bit of weight, which is fine, but I mean, who wants to grab a 200-pound barbell for the side bend? And then you got all the axial loading as well, which again is fine, but if you're doing deadlifts and all these other things in your program, you might want to not double down on that with really heavy side bends all the time. So I really like this exercise because with like no axial loading, 3 reps, Eugene tapped out. So it's pretty crazy how good of a workout you can get while still staying pretty fresh for whatever else you have planned for the day.
You would add weight to this, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like you would hold the dumbbell.
Hold the dumbbell. I could talk about the overhead variation.
And you know what, I'll try the other side and I'll see if I can do an overhead variation.
I don't think you're doing the overhead variation.
And so base leg is the forward one, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And you'll probably feel some of that stretch like through your hip here too.
Yeah, I definitely do. Raising up. Okay, so you want arm overhead, like that.
Put your hands together like in prayer over your head.
Like that?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
Up, up, up.
Yeah, I am.
Up. Oh. Eccentric, keep those arms over your head. There we go. And help you up. Up. Eccentric. There we go. One more.
All right. That is it for me, guys. My abs are done. It hurts to breathe. It hurts to do any kind of outro. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Do try these out for yourselves. Let us know how you go. Don't forget to check out Alec on all the different social medias, and we'll see you all next time.